Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to see all of you today. I hope you're ready for another meaningful lesson. But before we start, let us take a moment to pray first and ask for guidance. Please bow your head and feel the presence of the Lord as we all say, in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, thank you for this new day, for giving us the chance to learn together. Please guide our minds and hearts as we start our class discussion. Help us understand our lesson, share our ideas clearly, and listen with respect. Give our teacher wisdom and patience and help us stay focused, safe, and ready to do our best. May this discussion help us grow in knowledge, confidence, and kindness. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Alright, so let's check your attendance first. So Miss Secretary, who is absent for today? Alright, no one is absent. That's very good. So give a round of applause to everybody. Before we begin our new lesson, let us first recall of what we learned last time. So who can give me or who can recall our previous topic? Alright, so our previous topic was Kohlberg's theory of moral development, where this theory explains how people grow in their moral thinking, and it has 3 levels. So pre-conventional level, decisions are based on personal needs and avoiding punishment. Second is the conventional level, which people follow rules, laws, and what society expects. Third is the post-conventional level, where people think about universal moral principles like fairness and justice. So now, who can tell me one thing they remember about Kohlberg's theory? Can someone explain one of the levels? And why it is important for us to understand moral development? Very good, class. So thank you for your answers. Our review helped us remember what we learned and prepare us for our new lessons for today. Before we begin our main lesson, we'll have a short activity called Define Me Jumbled Edition. So the purpose of this activity is to help you recall an important vocabulary related to care, relationship, and moral decision making, which we will connect to our topic for today. Alright, so I will show you now the 5 jumbled letters. Here are the 5 jumbled words on screen. So your task is to rearrange the letters and form the correct words. So you will work individually and you will have 3 minutes to complete the task. After you unscramble the words, please write your own definition for each term. You may use your prior knowledge, context clues, or mobile dictionary. When you're done, I will call some of you to share your answers. You will read the correct word, give your definition, and use it in a sentence to everyday life, choices, or relationship. Alright, so your 3 minutes starts now. I think 3 minutes done, so let's share your answers. So who would like to begin? I think Kendall. Okay, so please tell us your word, your definition, and your example sentence. Alright, very good. So let's give a round of applause to Kendall, everyone. The correct word is first morality, empathy, dilemma, responsibility, and perspective. Good job, students. So since we are done with our first activity, so now let's have another activity called Care Pathways. So this is a group activity. So the goal of this activity is to help you understand how people make moral choices and how they show care for themselves and for others in different situations. But before we start, please listen to the instruction. So first, I will divide you into small group with 5 members each. Each group will receive a set of situation cards, markers, and a sheet of paper. These situation cards show short real-life scenarios. So I will show you the examples of the situation. So here are the example situations. So first, helping a friend even if it's risky. Second is standing up for yourself when someone is unfair. third is following rules without questioning. And fourth one is sacrificing your own comfort to help your family or friends. So when you receive your cards, your group will discuss each situation and ask yourselves, how would the person act in this situation? Are they caring more for themselves or are they caring more for others? Or are they balancing care for both self and others? So after your discussion, you will draw a simple care pathways on your sheet of paper. So I will show you an example of care pathways on the sheets. So this is an example of care pathways on the sheet. So on the upper side, you will write caring mainly for self. On the lower side, caring mainly for others, and on the middle side, balancing care for self and others. So your task is to place each situation card in the part of the pathway where your group believe it fits best. So once every group is finished, each group will come to the front and present their pathway. Please explain why you place each situation where it is. So this activity will help us understand different levels of care and moral decision making. So you may now form your groups. Alright, so since you're done answering with your group and categorizing each situation, so I will ask each group. So group 1, which situation did your group place mostly on the care for others side and why? Alright, very good. So how about the group 2? So which situation did your group placed mostly in the care for self side and why? Alright, so how about the group 3? Which situation were placed in the middle, which balancing care for self and others and why? Alright, so very good. So how about the group 4? So what did you learn about how people make moral choices? Alright, so can we have a round of applause for everybody? So now, let's have our main topic for today, which we talk about the Carl Gilligan's theory of moral development and the FOWLER'S stages of faith development. So first, let's have the Carl Gilligan's theory of moral development. Moral development has been the topic of philosophical and psychological debate for centuries now. Psychologist Carl Gilligan's theory of moral development challenged the traditional viewpoints. Her innovative views on the development of women's morality and a sense of self, which she detailed in her 1982 book In a Different Voice. Gilligan developed her approach in response to the theory of moral development proposed by Lawrence Kohlberg, which she criticized for ignoring women's perspective. So Gilligan proposed that women come to prioritize the ethics of care as their sense of morality evolves along with their sense of self, while men prioritize an ethics of justice. So in this topic, we will discuss the history of Gilligan's theory of moral development, how it became different from Kohlberg's theory of moral development, and how women develop their sense of self in the world.
For today, I will be discussing about the Gilligan's argument against the Kohlberg's theory. But before that, I have here a question. So, how did Carol Gilligan challenge Lawrence Kohlberg theory of moral development? Okay, may I call on Miss Mara? Thank you, Miss Mara, for that insights and sharing to your classmates. So, Carol Gilligan challenged Lawrence Kohlberg theory by arguing that it was biased toward male perspective of morality, emphasizing justice and abstract principles, while overlooking women's moral reasoning, which often centers on care, relationships, and responsibility. So, Gilligan's critique reshaped psychology and education by highlighting gender bias in research and promoting the idea that her moral development is not one size fits all. Her work encouraged broader recognition of diverse moral perspective, influencing fields from ethics to education and feminist psychology. So, we proceed to other topics. So, Kohlberg's theory of moral development consists of three levels, each one made of two stages. At the lowest are the pre-conventional level, and the needs of the self are prioritized. This evolves into the conventional level to an understanding of how to be a moral member of society. And lastly, at the highest level, the post-conventional level, the individual adopts a universal idea of justice. In pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional morality are the three levels of moral development proposed by Lawrence Kohlberg, where individuals' reasoning progress from self-interest to social order, and finally to universal ethical principles. So, in free conventional morality is based on avoiding punishment and gaining rewards. In conventional morality is based on social rules, laws, and relationships. And lastly to post-conventional morality is based on abstract universal principles and individual rights. So, in pre-conventional morality, it could be typically seen in a young children under 9 years old, but can be seen in adults under pressure, self-interest, avoiding punishment, and seeking rewards. So, in this, we have a following rules to avoid punishment and making decision based on self-interest. Number 2, the conventional morality, common in adolescents and most adults. So in here, maintaining a social order, adhering to laws, and gaining approval from others. It could be following rules to be seen as a good person and to gain approval. And also upholding laws and social order because it is seen as important for society to function. And number 3, the post-conventional morality. It could be reached by a minority of adults. It could be adherence to universal abstract principles and individual rights, even if they conflict with the social rules. So here, it could be recognizing that the laws are social constructs that can be changed to promote the greatest good. Individuals may discharge with laws they see as unjust. It could be moral decisions are based on a person concise and self-chosen with ethical principles such as justice, dignity, and the equality. And Kohlberg suggests that most people wouldn't reach the highest stage of his skill. Instead, they would stop developing morally in the middle stages at the conventional level, and that's exactly what research showed. So here our next topic. While both girls and boys tended to score at the conventional level in Kohlberg's skill. So girl scored predominantly at stage 3, which is concerned with being a good person in order to maintain the goodwill and approval of others, while most boys scored at stage 4, which is focused on adhering to the norms and laws of society. This made it seem like men reached the higher levels of morality than women. But Carl Gilligan noted that Kohlberg's theory was formulated exclusively through research with young white males. As a result, she suggests that Kohlberg's theory is biased toward men and boys and doesn't account for women's and girls' perspectives on morality. Next slide. Men, she said, prioritize an ethics of justice. In this approach, morality is centered on abstract principles and rules that can be applied equally to everyone. Meanwhile, women prioritize an ethics of care, where morality is centered on interpersonal relationships and moral judgment is based on the context of an issue. So that Carl Gilligan argued that Lawrence Kohlberg's theory of moral development was male biased and incomplete because it focused too heavily on an ethics of justice, which is more aligned with traditional male experiences. So she contended that Kohlberg's model neglected the ethics of care that are more prevalent in female moral reasoning. which she emphasized relationships, empathy, and responsibility to others rather than abstract principles and rights, so that Gilligan's proposed that caring and justice represent different but equally valid approaches to morality, and that Kohlberg's male-centric research failed to account for this diversity in moral development. So, Gilligan's argued that Kohlberg's theory was developed primarily using male participants and reflect a male-centric worldview that prioritized abstract justice and individuals' rights. So, in the Ethics of Care, she proposed that women often approach moral dilemmas with an ethics of care, which is focuses on relationships, empathy, and responsibility to avoid harm and maintain connection. So that Gilligan conducted a several interview studies with girls and women, including with one woman who were deciding whether to have an abortion, to flesh out her ideas about women's morality. The goal of her work was to demonstrate that women don't necessarily stop developing morally before men can do, but their moral development follow a different trajectory that can be connected to Kohlberg's theory.
Now let's discuss Gilligan's stages of development. So there are 3 stages of Gilligan's development. First one is pre-conventional morality, second is conventional morality, and lastly is the post-conventional morality. Okay, now let's talk about pre-conventional morality. It focuses on self and survival, and then when choosing between self and others, the woman chooses her own needs. When we say pre-conventional morality, it's the earliest stage of moral development. So at this stage, a person mainly thinks about their own needs and survival. So when they must choose between themselves and others, of course, they usually put themselves first. And then ang transition ani niya is that begins to see responsibilities towards others, realize her earlier thinking was more self-centered. So it happens when the person start noticing that others also have needs, and then they began to feel responsibility towards others and realize that their earlier way of thinking was more self-centered. So in simple terms, ang stage ano niya, first stage is I take care of myself first. And then, iyang transition is that, others matter too, not just me. Okay, while conventional morality, it focuses on caring for others, and then being good means helping and protecting others, often sacrifice her own needs for others. So it's the stage where a person focuses on caring for others, and then they believe being good means helping, protecting, and pleasing others, even it means sacrificing their own needs. So iyang transition ani is that they try to balance caring for others and caring for herself. Moves from wanting to be good to seeking truth about her own. And then ang another transition is that it happens when the person realize they also need care for themselves, and then they start trying to balance helping others while respecting their own needs. Instead of just trying to be good, they look for what is actually right and true for themselves personally. So in simple terms, stage 1 anemia is that other comes first and I must be good by helping them. Ang iyang transition is that I matter too, I need to balance their needs and mine. So we have lastly is the post-conventional morality. It is a moral decision focused on non-violence or no harm to self or others. All needs are equal to the needs of the others, and then develops a strong ethic of care and responsibility. So it is the highest level of moral development. At this stage, a person makes decision based on non-violence, meaning they try not to harm themselves or others. They see their own needs as equally important as the needs of others and develop a strong sense of care and responsibility for everyone. So, yan transition is that no specific age for each level, and then not all women reach the highest level. Development depends on thinking ability and changes in the sense of self and not life. So it explains that there are no set ages for reaching these levels, and then not everyone reaches this highest stage, and then the growth depends on a person's ability to think deeply and understand themselves, not on life events alone. So in simple terms, ani niya, ang stage 1 niya is everyone's needs, including mine, matter equally, and then I choose what causes the least harm. Iyan transition is that reaching this level depends on personal growth, not age or experience.
For the next slide is I will be discussing the ethics of care and developing sense of self. These lessons explain how we grow in understanding ourselves and how we learn to care for others. And according to Carol Gilligan, people go through 3 levels of moral development based on how they care for themselves and others. These levels are the pre-conventional, conventional, and the post-conventional levels. For the first level is the pre-conventional level. It is a person who only thinks about themselves. So they focus mainly on their own needs and survival. So the center of caring here is the self. So this shows that caring is focused on self-survival or they have their own benefits. And the next level is the conventional level. It is the needs of others become more important. People start to care more for others and sometimes they forget or ignore their own needs. They may even think that taking care of themselves is selfish. And the example for that is a student may always help classmates with projects even if they are tired or stressed. They think that others is more important than themselves. And the last level is the post-conventional level. It is a person who understands that both their own needs and the needs of others are important. So this is a balanced way of caring. For example, a friend helps others with their own homework but also sets time to rest or study for themselves. This shows a healthy balance between caring for self and caring for others. Moving from one stage to another depends on how a person changes their understanding of what selfish means. As a person grows through relationship and responsibilities, their sense of care also grows. And this is the best example of transition between stages. A teenager may first focus only on what they want, and later on, they begin caring more about friends and family. And as they mature, they make decisions that are good for both themselves and the people around them. So, these lessons help us understand how people grow in their own moral thinking. So, as Carol Gilligan explained, that first, we care only about ourselves, then, we learn to care for others, and finally, we learn how to balance both. By learning these stages, we can do better understand why people think and act the way they do. It also helps us reflect on our own choices, values, and relationship. As we continue to grow, we learn to care in a healthier and more balanced way. And that's the ethics of care and developing sense of self.
Today, we will be diving into a fascinating area of human development, the evolution of faith. Our focus is on the work of James Fowler. Before we jump into the stages, let's have another motivational activity which is entitled Word Builder Challenge to ensure we are all have a strong foundation of the K concepts we will encounter later. Our objective for today's activity to activate prior knowledge of vocabulary and K concepts related to philosophy, religion, and developmental psychology that are essential for understanding Fowler's work. Direction. I will present 5K challenging words from the reading material on the screen. You will work individually for 3 minutes to determine the definition of each word using context clues or their mobile device's dictionary function. I will call students to share their definitions and then ask them to use the word in a sentence related to life. Does anyone want to share a quick example or definition for any of these words? Thank you for sharing your ideas. So, understanding these terms will help us appreciate the nuances of each stage of faith development. As we begin for a proper discussion, let's have another activity, which is group activity. Our activity is entitled Faith Timeline. So, our objective, students will collaboratively organize and conceptualize the developmental nature of Fowler's theory. So, instructions for our activity. The class is divided into 5 groups. Each group receives 7 shuffled index cards. Each card contains a brief description of one of Fowler's 7 stages, stage 0 to stage 6, but the names of the stages are hidden or replaced with generic titles. Example, the beginning, the storyteller, or the low follower. The groups are tasked with arranging the 7 cards in the correct sequence or developmental sequence from earliest 0 to stage 6. Example, childhood, adolescence, or mid-adulthood. After 5 minutes, one of representative from each group posts their sequence on the board. Gets? So thank you for all the groups for sharing your sequences. It's clear that while some stages are very intuitive, others require a closer look at the K concept. So, based from our activity, I have questions. What was the process your group used to arrange the cards? Did you look for keywords like childhood, abstract, or adult, which was more helpful, focusing on simple reading or symbols, or focusing on age? Yes? Okay, thank you for sharing. So, based on your answer, your group looked for words that showed simple, young, or like thinking stories or rules. First, deep, adult thinking like paradoxes or universal. And then, this was more helpful than just guessing ages. Why did most groups place the trust versus mistrust card first and the universal compassion card last? So yes, the trust card comes first because faith starts with the basic relationships or the babyhood. The universal compassion cards comes last because it is the most mature, rare, and difficult form of faith, needing a whole lifetime of growth. So last question, did any descriptions confuse you? For example, the one about literal interpretation of stories, stage 2, versus acknowledging paradoxes, stage 5. Okay, yes. The stages can be confusing. For example, stage 2, think stories are only 100% true and literal like a child. Stage 5 knows that life and faith can have many different truths that don't always fit together easily, acknowledging paradoxes. But they accept this complexity. This shows the huge difference in how we think between stages. So let's proceed to our proper discussion. James Fowler, the person behind the stages of faith theory, he was an American theologian and a professor at Emory University who studied how people's faith grows and changes throughout their lives. He also worked as the director of two important research centers that focus on faith, morality, and ethics. So Fowler was also a minister in the United Methodist Church, and he became well known because he created a developmental model that explains how faith develops from childhood to adulthood. His ideas was published in his popular book called Stages of Faith, The Psychology of Human Development, and the Quiz for Meaning. So, according to Fowler, there are 7 stages of faith development, starting from stage 0, during early childhood, up to more mature and reflective stages in adulthood. These stages help explain how a person's beliefs, values, and understanding of God or meaning in life grow and change as they experience different situations.
Good day, everyone. Today, let's talk about the ethics of care and developing sense of self. We have here a 4 stage. First, stage 0, the primal faith. Second, stage 1, intuitive projective faith. Next, stage 2, mythic literal faith. Next, stage 3, synthetic conventional faith. And lastly, stage 4, the individuative reflected faith. So in the next slide, we will be able to know the different meaning of each of these stages. So kindly listen carefully. Thank you. First stage 0, primal faith, birth in 2 years. This stage means the very first and basic form of faith. This stage is about how babies begin to develop trust in the world through their caregivers. So ang ilang faith gikan pa or mas masabtan pa nila through kung giun sa sila pag-atiman sa mga ilang parents. So I have here a short description about these stages. So in this stage, a baby learns trust or mistrust depending on how caregivers respond to their needs. When a baby comforted, protected, and cared for consistently, they develop a sense of trust in the world and the divine. But if they experience neglect or abuse, they may develop fear, insecurity, and mistrust. So of course, if you, a baby, experience the abuse, so daghan yun silang mga questions sa iyang lahang life. And then, this stage is similar to Erickson's trust versus mistrust and Piaget's sensorimotor stage. So next stage is stage 1, the intuitive projective faith, ages 3 to 7. At this stage means children use imagination, pictures, or stories to understand faith. So at this stage, children use imagination, stories, images, and what they see around them to form ideas about faith. They do not yet think logically, but they develop early beliefs based on what they hear from adults, what they see in pictures, and their understanding is simple, symbolic, and sometimes magical, matching Piaget's pre-operational stages. So, dili pa sila kabalo mo, hunahuna og logical, maong simple og sometimes magic ang ilahang pagsabot. At this age, gamit kaayo nila ang ilang imagination or nakita sa ilang palibot para mas masabtan nila kung unsa ang faith. So, next stage, the stage 2, which is, mythic literal faith. age 7 to 12. So at this age, children believes religious stories. So at this age, mas mutuod sila kung unsa ang ilang nakita sa ilang nakita nga mga movie. So I have here a description. Children at this stage begin to think more logically, but they still take religious stories and symbols literally. They believe in fairness, justice, and the cause and effect. So, they often imagine God in human form. This stage aligns with Piaget's concrete operational thinking. So, the belief in fairness and justice, ang mga bata di ay makahuna-huna na og mas logical pero literal gihapon sila mo tan-aw sa mga istorya sa relihiyon. Mutuo sila nga kung maayo ka, maayo sad ang mahitabo nimo. Pero og bati ka, bati pod ang mahitabo nimo. So, mao to ang stage 2. So, let's proceed the next. Next stage is the stage 3, synthetic conventional faith 12 adult. In this stage, adolescents and adults form a faith identity based on what their family, church, or community teaches. They want to belong, so they usually follow the beliefs of their group. They may struggle when their beliefs are challenged and often avoid conflict. They can now understand God as abstract when matches Piaget's formal operational thinking. I have here a one example scenario. Maria goes to church because her family does and she follows their beliefs so she can fit in. So, at this stage, people want to belong to a group, like family, church, or friends. They believe what they group believes because of it feels safe. And also, they avoid questions or arguments about faith because they are not ready to think independently. And also, their faith is based on trusting others, not their own thinking yet. So meaning to say, Maria's faith depends on her group. She doesn't question much. She simply follows. So, that's the stage 3 talks about. Next, stage 4. Individuative reflective faith, or middle 20s to late 30s. So, in this individuative reflected, let's talk about that individuals begin to question the beliefs they grow up with. They take a personal responsibility for their faith and start to examine their values more deeply. This stage can bring confusion or struggle, but it helps a person form a more mature and independent understanding of. And also, I have here a one example. Or K idea. She want or he want to understand what I truly believe. So, just like for example this situation, John starts to question the beliefs he learned as a child and wants to decide for himself. He begins to think deeply and reflect. Do I really believe this? He studies, reads, and explores ideas on his own. Sometimes he feels confused because questioning can be hard. He takes his responsibility for his own values, not just what the group says. So meaning to say, John's faith becomes more personal and mature. He chooses his beliefs based on thinking, not just
Good day, everyone. So I will be discussing the stage 5 conjunctive faith or the middle life. So it is a step in some faith development theories where Fox starts seeing religion step as super complicated and kind of mysterious. They realize no single religion or tradition has all the answers. Because of that, they become cool with holding multiple viewpoints at once and can spot deeper meanings behind different teachings. So this makes them generally more open-minded, empathetic, and reflective. So the idea is that faith is complex. So no one religion has everything. So it may result on people embrace many perspectives, see deeper truths, become more tolerant and thoughtful. So we'll give you some examples. So first, the interfaith appreciation. So A person attends a Buddhist meditation session, goes to a Catholic mass, and reads Hindu scriptures not because they're confused, but because they see valuable insights in which and can hold those truths together. So the second one is the symbolic understanding. So instead of taking stories literally, they view parables. Example is that the gods, Samaritans, Buddhas for noble truths, and as metaphorical guides that teach universal values like compassion, regardless of the specific tradition. So the third one is the dialogue driven. They're the ones who join interreligious forums, willingly discussing different and finding common ground, like appreciating both Ramadan's discipline and Lent's reflective practices for their shared intent of self growth. So the fourth one is the um, personal synthesis. So someone might craft a personal belief, system, blending elements from their and bringing example Christian ethics with ideas from other philosophies. Examples is Taoist or the non-attachment, feeling comfortable that it's okay not to fit neatly into one box. So, for that, basically at this stage, people get comfy with uncertainty, enjoying and exploring different lenses, and end up being more understanding and thoughtful about faith related. So, stage 6, universalizing faith or the late adulthood. So, it's described as a rare advanced level reached by only a few. People at this stage radiate deep compassion, love, and justice for everyone. So they embody the highest ideals of their faith. Think peace, equality, kindness, and see all humans as interconnected, treating others with genuine understanding. It's portrayed as the pinnacle of spiritual maturity. So, example given in that Leo Tolstoy in his later years. So Tolstoy, the famous Russian writer known for works like War and Peace, so is cited as someone who is towards the end of his life. Exemplify this universalizing outlook, showing broad compassion and a sense of unity with all people. Philippines moral development and followers faith development. So both explain how people grow and understanding themselves and the world around them. So first, let's define the Gilligan's theory. It says that moral growth starts with focusing on oneself, then moves to caring for others, and finally finds a balance between the two. So it's basically learning to be fair to yourself while considering others. So the next one will be the Fowler's theory. So it describes faith development as a series of stages. So it begins with basic trust, grows as we learn from stories or authority figures, then moves toward questioning personal belief, and ends with a deeper, more compassionate understanding of humanity. So together, they highlight that morality and faith develop through relationship, experiences, and reflection. They remind us that becoming mature person means caring for others. So, honoring ourselves and embracing a broad, more inclusive view of life. So, I will give you some examples. So, imagine a teenager. So, let's call her Anna. So, the first is that early stage of Gilligan. So, Anna thinks mostly about her own needs. I want to play video games now. So, the second one is the growth follower. She starts learning from family stories or teachers, beginning to trust certain values. The third one is that middle stage. Anna becomes more empathetic. My friend is sad. I'll skip gaming to help her. So that's the third. And the fourth one is the advanced stage, Fowler. So she questions earlier beliefs, thinks critically, and decide what truly matters to her. The fifth one is mature stage. So Anna reaches a balanced view. She cares for herself and others, holds a compassionate outlook toward different perspectives, and lives with the wider sense of purpose. So that shows how the two theories complement each other in describing a personal growth. So that's all my report and my discussion. And God bless everyone.